I had invited Daniel over that evening under the guise of a casual gathering. It wasn't unusual for us to meet, friends often share dinners, laugh over stories, and let hours slip away unnoticed. Yet, as I laid out the plates and carefully arranged the wine glasses, I couldn't ignore the nervous flutter in my chest. Every fold of the napkin, every small detail of preparation carried a weight I didn't want to name. The truth was far simpler and far more complicated at the same time. I wanted to see him, and the thought of his presence lit something within me I had been trying to deny for months. Daniel was a friend I had always admired. His smile seemed capable of disarming any storm, his voice carried a calm that soothed even my most restless moods. There had always been a kind of closeness between us, the kind that made me wonder if the boundaries of friendship were as rigid as people claimed. That evening, as I moved around my apartment, waiting for the knock at the door, I realized just how much I longed for him, not just as a companion, but as something more. When the doorbell finally rang, I took a moment before answering, inhaling slowly as if I could calm the surge inside me with air alone. I opened the door, and there he was, standing with a bottle of wine in one hand, wearing the same easy smile that always unsettled me in ways I couldn't admit aloud. "I thought this might go well with whatever you're making," he said, his tone casual, yet his eyes lingered on mine longer than they should have. The evening unfolded smoothly at first. We laughed about work, reminisced about shared memories, and teased each other in ways that came naturally. The room felt lighter with him in it, as though every corner carried warmth simply because he was there. Yet beneath the laughter, my thoughts churned. I found myself studying him too closely, the way his hand brushed his hair back, the curve of his lips when he smiled, the subtle shift in his eyes when he listened intently, that I tried to remind myself that I was already committed elsewhere, that Daniel was my friend, nothing more. But as he leaned across the table to pour the wine, the faint scent of his cologne drifted toward me, and restraint felt like a fragile thread stretched to breaking. As the night deepened, our conversation moved into more personal territory. We spoke of dreams, regrets, and the strange loneliness that can linger even when life appears full. Daniel's words carried a raw honesty, and I felt a closeness to him that startled me. He admitted how often he felt misunderstood, how rarely he allowed himself to be vulnerable with others. I listened, my heart pounding, realizing that I understood him more than I should. There were silences too, not awkward ones, but silences charged with something unspoken. During one of those quiet moments, his eyes met mine, and I couldn't look away. It felt as if time stilled, as if the space between us had collapsed into something both dangerous and irresistible. I shifted, trying to break the spell, but the truth was already pressing against me. I wanted him. The weight of that realization settled heavily on my chest. A voice in my mind whispered of boundaries, loyalty, the rules I was breaking simply by entertaining the thought. Yet another voice, quieter but fiercer, urged me to admit what I had always known. The evening wore on, but the mood had shifted. Our laughter was softer, our words slower, as though both of us were acutely aware of the undercurrent pulling us closer. At one point, his hand brushed mine across the table. It was a small gesture, fleeting, but it sent a shiver down my spine. He didn't pull away immediately, and neither did I. When he finally glanced at the clock and mentioned it was getting late, I felt both relief and disappointment. I didn't want the night to end, yet I feared what might happen if it continued. As he stood to leave, we lingered at the doorway, caught between farewell and something else entirely. His eyes lingered on mine once more, and in that moment, I understood, tonight was no longer just a friendly dinner. It was the beginning of something I couldn't ignore, something that would demand choices I wasn't sure I was ready to make. And as I closed the door behind him, my hand trembling on the knob, I knew that the story between us had only just begun. The night after Daniel's visit, I replayed every detail in my mind, the way his eyes lingered, the brush of his hand against mine, the heavy silence that had stretched between us. Sleep didn't come easily. Guilt tugged at me, but so did longing. I told myself it was harmless, that nothing had happened. Yet deep down I knew something had shifted. The boundary line had been crossed, if not in body then in intention. A week later, I found myself inviting him over again. This time, there was no excuse of a gathering or a casual dinner. I simply told him I wanted his company. He agreed without hesitation, and that single acceptance quickened my pulse more than I cared to admit. When he arrived, the atmosphere was different from the very beginning. The casualness of our first evening was gone, replaced with something heavier, more deliberate. We still talked and laughed, but beneath every word lingered an awareness neither of us dared to name. My chest felt tight, caught between anticipation and dread. After dinner, instead of leaving, Daniel stretched out on the couch, his body loose, his presence filling the room in a way that made it impossible to ignore him. I sat nearby, careful but restless. Our conversation slowed, and soon silence crept in again, the same charged quiet that had hung over us the last time that it was Daniel who finally broke it. He turned his head toward me, his expression unguarded, almost searching. "You've been different lately," he said softly. "Like you're holding something back." The words made my throat dry. My first instinct was denial, but the truth was too close to the surface. I shook my head slightly, trying to smile, but the effort felt weak. "Maybe I am," I admitted. His gaze held mine, steady and unflinching. The weight of it pressed down on me until I could no longer hide. Without thinking, I leaned forward. For a heartbeat, we hovered between hesitation and surrender. Then, as if drawn by something beyond control, our lips met. The kiss was tentative at first, almost questioning. But once the barrier was broken, restraint collapsed. The softness deepened, his breath mingling with mine, his hand finding the back of my neck. My heart raced, my body alive with a sensation I hadn't felt in years. The enormity of what we were doing struck me even as I surrendered to it. I was betraying someone I claimed to love, stepping into a space from which there could be no return. But in that moment, reason was drowned by desire. Every doubt was silenced by the undeniable truth of how right it felt. When we finally pulled apart, the room felt unbearably quiet. I searched his face for regret, for hesitation, but saw none. Instead, there was a flicker of relief, as though he too had been waiting for this. "I've wanted this for so long," Daniel confessed, his voice low. "I just didn't know if you felt the same." His words struck me harder than the kiss itself. To know he had carried the same secret longing made my chest ache. I nodded, unable to speak, because if I did, everything might unravel at once. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours, and we sat close, hands entwined, neither of us daring to move away. The guilt in me grew heavier, pressing at the edges of my mind, yet it was matched by something stronger, a sense of liberation, of finally admitting a truth I had hidden too long. That we kissed again, slower this time, more certain. Each moment carried the thrill of discovery and the weight of betrayal. I thought of my partner, of promises made and now broken, but the thought slipped quickly into the background as Daniel's warmth pressed against me. By the time the evening drew to a close, nothing between us was the same. We hadn't gone further than kisses, yet it felt as if the world had tilted on its axis. The threshold had been crossed, and neither of us could pretend otherwise. As he stood to leave, Daniel hesitated at the door, his hand brushing mine once more. "We can't undo this," he whispered, not as a warning but as a truth we both already knew, and as I watched him walk away into the night, my heart pounded with both fear and exhilaration. I had betrayed, yes, but I had also awakened something within myself. A single kiss had unraveled the life I thought I knew, and I could already sense the storm it would bring. The morning after Daniel left, I stood by the window with a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. My reflection in the glass looked like a stranger, eyes restless, expression caught somewhere between guilt and quiet exhilaration. The memory of his lips still lingered, vivid and unshakable, like a bruise beneath the skin that no one else could see. That I told myself to forget, to lock the memory away and carry on as though nothing had happened. Yet as the hours unfolded, I found myself reaching for my phone, scrolling through our messages, replaying his words in my head. "We can't undo this." He had been right. A door had been opened, and no matter how much I tried, I couldn't close it again. At home, I wore the mask of normalcy. I spoke with my partner as though everything was fine, asked about their day, smiled when expected. But each gesture felt rehearsed, hollow. The guilt was sharp, cutting into me at unexpected moments, when I laughed too easily, when I turned away too quickly, when I caught myself thinking of Daniel in places where I should have been present. The days that followed were heavy with silence. I avoided Daniel at first, convincing myself that distance would restore order. But silence has a way of deepening what it tries to hide. By the third day, a message arrived from him. Simple words, "Are you okay?" I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. After a pause that stretched too long, I replied, "I don't know." That night, we spoke on the phone. His voice, low and steady, carried more comfort than I wanted to admit. We didn't talk about logistics, about what this meant or what we should do next. Instead, we confessed how often we had thought of the kiss, how impossible it had become to pretend it was nothing. His honesty both relieved and terrified me. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. I hesitated. The honest answer was tangled. Yes, because of what it meant for my relationship; no, because of what it meant for my heart. "I regret what it does," I said at last, "but not what it was." Silence followed, but it wasn't empty. It was the kind of silence that holds truth. In the weeks that followed, we saw each other again. Sometimes it was unplanned, sometimes deliberate. We didn't speak of love, not openly, but it hung in the air between us, unspoken yet undeniable. Each time, I promised myself it would be the last. Each time, I broke that promise. At home, the weight of betrayal grew heavier. My partner sensed the distance, asked questions I couldn't answer. I offered excuses, stress, work, fatigue, but the truth remained locked inside me. I felt torn between two worlds, one of stability, history, and commitment, and another of passion, intimacy, and raw authenticity. The conflict hollowed me out. At night, lying beside someone I had sworn to love, I would close my eyes and see Daniel's face. In the morning, I would look at my partner and wonder how much longer I could carry the lie. The breaking point came quietly, without drama. One evening, after another day of pretending, I realized I could no longer live suspended between truth and loyalty. The kiss had not been a fleeting mistake, it had revealed something deeper, something I could not erase. I didn't confess everything to my partner that night. I lacked the courage for full honesty. Instead, I spoke of confusion, of feeling lost, of needing time to understand myself. Their face showed hurt, but also fatigue, as if they had sensed this moment was inevitable. Later, alone again, I sat in the dark with my phone in my hand, staring at Daniel's name on the screen. I typed and erased several messages before settling on just 3 words, "I need you." The reply came quickly, "I'm here." I leaned back, closing my eyes. Relief washed through me, but so did fear. I knew the path ahead would not be simple. I had chosen desire over safety, truth over pretense, but the cost of that choice was still unfolding. As the night pressed in, I realized that infidelity is never just about betrayal, it is about uncovering the parts of ourselves we have buried, about choosing what feels alive even when it threatens to destroy what we thought was certain. And so, with the memory of his kiss still burning on my lips, I accepted the truth I had been running from all along. My life had changed, and there was no going back.